morning. Hey, Otto. So everyone's doing all right this morning or day, wherever you're watching this. This is Otto. It's our garden cat. I just introduced him yesterday, but I'm going to keep introducing him until you all know him good and well. Otto loves a little morning love. It's my little time with him just to say hello. All right, so we got a little bit more rain last night, but it's supposed to now be dry for the next couple of days. So now I have to really be thinking about for the next few days, okay, I need to make sure that everything has enough water, everything's happy. And knowing that, I'm going to be thinking today about taking care of things that need to be taken care of that I haven't gotten around to because it's been a little wet. So I want to make sure all my mulch is still there. I want to make sure that I kind of reset the chicken area because it won't just be destroyed immediately with a lot of weather. But today what we're going to focus on basically is what you can feed your chickens that isn't chicken feed. That can also come from your yard, from your garden, from wherever you're at. So I'm in the tropics here, so let's remember that. So what I'm talking about specifically is what I'm finding literally here on my property in the tropics. But in temperate climates and arid climates, there's going to be similarities in the various kind of plants that'll be growing that you can feed your chickens. You just have to find the local species, all right? Because there's always something. There's always a lot of weeds, plants that are not where you want them to be, or things that you maybe don't like because you've always had to pull them out as a kid. They're often really beneficial and really nutritious. Dandelions is a great example of something like that because dandelions, the greens, really, really great greens for you. The root you can make into a tea. It's pretty much it's like a go-to plant that they planted when they were traveling west to have food along the way for people coming next. Or that's at least a fable. I don't know if it's actually true, but that's one example. And the chickens will definitely eat dandelion, that's for sure. So. All right, so we'll start looking around my backyard here. We'll talk a little bit about a few things and what you can feed them, and we'll see what we can learn. All right, I gotta go. I gotta work. I gotta work now. So the first candidate I'm going to show you guys here, and we've talked about this before, is what I now know, thanks to my friends. For you guys who actually wrote in after watching me talk about this on the show, on this vlog here, is a wild arrowroot of some sort. Let's make sure you guys can see. All right, it's like a wild arrowroot. Canna Lilly is kind of what it's called here. And this stuff grows abundantly where I live. This is just, I've been here since we actually moved into the place. It's like a little kind of raised garden bed that's along this ditch right here. It's so weird. We have this major drainage ditch that runs straight down our property right here that the city put in a long time ago. So anyway, this just grows abundantly and eventually gets to the point where it's all scrambled and jumbled, and so it starts falling over and it just looks ugly, one, and two, it's a chicken feed. It works great as a chicken feed. So what I like to do here is every so often I find the ones that are starting to be dead and dying, and I'll just cut those out. And I just basically stockpile up anything that's flowering. If it's actively flowering and looking pretty, I'll leave it just for beauty and for the hummingbirds. The hummingbirds love this flower. They'll come, I'll see them zoom in, check out the flowers, zoom out, and they'll come back and forth all day long. They love this flower. The butterflies like it too. So if it's actively flowering, I'll usually leave it. But if it's not actively flowering, I just take it. And because I have so much, it grows in such abundance that I also just kind of take whatever I don't necessarily want here just to clear it out. I think of this as, again, this is a harvest. This is chicken food that I'm pulling out here. So this is my kind of harvest. I do this on probably at least once a week. I harvest a bunch of this for the chickens. because it's a great green to add into their diets. Chickens love greens. If chickens could be eating greens full time and not grain full time, they probably would. I mean, they like seeds too, so I mean, don't get me wrong there. But they love greens. And the more access to greens they have, the healthier they're going to be and the happier they're going to be. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I was here playing with our harvest here. Let's do one more big bunch. So yeah, now I do want to try to dig one of these out to see if we actually get a little root from it. So let me grab my little shovel. All right, so I cut that off. So I could take this and I can put it anywhere on the property. It would start growing again, as long as there's enough moisture. It likes it moist. But here in the tropics, we usually have enough moisture. So let's clear a little bit of that soil away and see if we can't see any root structure here. It did break off of a pretty heavy root structure, but this one right here might be a little too young to have any actual major roots. Hard for me to tell. Because what I want this to be is arrowroot. I believe that's what it is. I'm pretty sure. It's in the same family as turmeric and ginger. I don't know if you can see the cat playing, but it's pretty fun. It's in the same family as turmeric and ginger, zinjerabi or something like that. But so I'm not seeing anything here, but it did break off of a really big root. And I don't really want to disturb it right now, but if it is arrowroot, then we could actually use it and process it as arrowroot powder or something like that. Basically dry it out and process it. It's likely a wild variety, so it's possible that there's not really an edible use for it for us, but I think that the wild varieties are also an edible variety. So something to keep looking at and keep trying to figure out for another date. Next time I dig it up, maybe we'll have a bit better answer. All right, so with that little bit of effort, I have a big pile here of greens, chicken feed. I mean, that's quite a bit for 3 chickens right there. That's probably enough for all day, just for them. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to keep going and see what else we can find in the garden to act as our chicken feed. Obviously, pretty much anything you'll eat, they'll eat. So if you have excess greens from your garden, this is New Zealand spinach, looking really good. Popping back after our application compost. It was never really doing poorly, but it's definitely happier now that I added that compost and extra mulch. And these kales are really doing much better too. Before they were kind of just looking a little raggedy. They weren't quite sure if they wanted to be here, and I'm not sure if it's a function of we're getting more sunlight, we're getting more towards summer, so more sun is accessing this, because these guys are underneath this banana up here. It's giving them lots of shade. So I could open up one of these leaves here, but honestly, I'm okay with having these guys a little more protected, because that afternoon sun is pretty intense here. So another common plant that a lot of y'all out there might have is comfrey right here. I actually took this from Gino over at Gino Rossi's when I was working at his farm one day, and I just basically took a root cutting, and that's what's great about this plant here is you can take a root cutting about an inch long and stick it in the ground, it'll grow a new one. Now this one I actually took and had some leaf to it and everything, so it had a little crown still, so it transplanted much better and just shot up new growth. But I'm basically gonna let this grow for a few months, and I'll probably dig it up and split the root system a little bit and then plant it in a few other places throughout the property. But comfrey is a great plant once it actually flowers, if it does flower. Basically there's 2 different varieties. There's the Bocking 14, which is a seedless variety, and that's what I would generally recommend, because if it's in the wrong place, this plant can become definitely invasive. So just note that it's definitely a pretty popular plant in the permaculture circles. It's a great ground cover. It's a great super nutrient rich leaf. And that being said, that is the reason why we're talking about it, is because this is also a chicken feed. So you can just rip these off. I'm going to use up my pruners just because I have them right here, and I like to leave clean cuts when I can. But I basically am going to take off all those bottom leaves that are starting to kind of be a little sad, and voila. This also acts as a great compost starter. So when you're building your compost pile, if you cut this up a whole bunch and put it right at the center of your pile, this acts as basically like a little center for all the biota there to start reproducing. It's really kind of a little sappy on the inside. It's not super moist, but it is kind of sappy in there. So this plant, if you just break it up a bunch right there, that right there, you can see it starts getting that nice little greenness to it. If I squeeze it a little bit, it starts being a little moist there. This is great for a compost pile. Right in the center, starter. When you're starting your pile, this will help get that little oomph that it needs. It's also, comfrey has a really deep taproot. It can go up to 10 feet deep in the right soils. And what that does is, in the middle of your summer, if you live somewhere in the temperate climate where you have a major drought, or even in the tropics here, if you live in like a wet-dry cycle, I actually don't know how this plant performs in the wet-dry tropics. Here in the wet tropics, it does great. But these taproots go really deep, so they're able to take that moisture from deep down and bring it up to the surface, but they also bring up minerals from deep down in the subsoil and put it into their leaves, which then you can use as a mulch. So I'm actually growing it right here in the corner of my little greens garden, because I just kind of knew that I could always, if I'm not using it for chicken feed, I can take it, I can just throw it right on the ground and just lay it out, and it'll be a nice little blanket of coverage that I could use to protect my plants if I wanted to. If I needed more mulch, I could just do that and leave it just like that, and it'll slowly break down and turn into more soil food. So that's going to be added into the pile over there. We already have quite a bit going in that pile, but let's see what else we got. I actually see a few things right here. This is the majesty of once you start learning about all the weeds. So this right here, this vine, actually not sure 100% what it's called, but it is edible and it is medicinal. I bet Jimmy out there, who, if he's watching this, he's gonna send me a message and tell me what it is right after I'm done here. Thanks, Jimmy, in advance. But this vine, the chickens actually love. They absolutely love the greens on it, and they also love the fruits. So I believe it's a bitter melon. I think it's called bitter melon of some sort. I just don't know what this specific kind is. It produces these fruits, and these fruits are actually edible. They have these red seeds. Let's see if I can get a better shot of that for you. It has these like really red, sorry about that, some red seeds in there. And this is actually edible. You can eat, I personally can eat this too. It's not much of a flavor, but the chickens love it, so I like to bring it to them. So I'm going to add that to my pile here. Ooh. So that grows naturally here, and that's just something that it kind of likes to clamber up, and I just let it grow along my fence line here so I can harvest it for the chickens. This is its flower. This is kind of pretty basic yellow flower. And you can see it's just kind of scrambling along here. So I usually just take, when it starts to approach the garden, I'll just take a big old bunch of it and throw it in my harvest pile. All right, I believe actually the chickens will eat banana leaves too, although I've yet to see that. So it's a potential that banana leaves themselves are a feed, which would be pretty cool. But that one is yet to be proven. We'll get there another day. All right. Continuing along, we're gonna look for some more. I just threw this pile in here. And you can see instantly the rooster went and was calling over his ladies saying, hey, come check it out, there's food here, there's food here. And you can see they instantly go right after it. And that's that typical little rooster thing of scratching, and pretty funny to, well, I always wonder why he's scratching the stuff I throw in at him, but that's just the nature of chickens. They like to scratch. But you can see there, they're chowing down already, especially on those Canna Lilly greens. That especially they love. But they're gonna find all the other stuff in there. And we're not even done bringing them stuff, so let's keep going on that. So another thing that grows abundantly here in the tropics is this blue dayflower, cohitre in Espanol. This is just an abundant weed that grows all throughout my gardens. I'm sure you've heard me talking about it 4 or 5 or 6 times already. But this stuff just grows like crazy here. I don't have to do anything about it, and it grows abundantly. So this is a constant for me, chicken feed, because the chickens love it. So I just let it grow wherever I can, basically not in my garden beds, but wherever else I can let it grow. And what I love about it is it's pretty easy to rip up. If you just pull on it, here, I'll try to show you. I'm pretty gently, I'm not even pulling that hard, gently pulling, and it comes right up because it typically just sits right on top of the soil and doesn't really dig its roots super deep unless it's super rich, loose soil. So all this right here, this just becomes a big old pile of chicken feed, and that took me all of maybe 4 or 5 seconds to actually harvest if I wasn't sitting here and explaining it to you. So I just added some of that cohitre to my chicken pen, but if you look here, you can see this little side. So my chicken fence, actually, I left a 1 meter opening, 3 feet opening between the main fence to the property and my chicken area. And that's because I wanted this area to be walkable so I can always clear the fence line, because the overgrowth here is just, it's crazy. It's an abundant growth always here in the tropics. So this is pretty much a constant chore of cleaning all this up. So I want to make sure I can access it super easy without having to walk through the chickens, let them do their thing. So I left this nice big old gap here, but it's also a great place for me to grow chicken feed. As you can see, the cohitre loves it here, and there's lots of other little viney things that also grow here. This area gets a lot of, part shade. It's shady most of the day because of the fence line here. So I could also grow things in this little corner that are okay with that. You can see down there that joutia down there, it's a type of taro. I'm not sure if that's the edible kind or the wild kind. I still need to learn much more about tropical root vegetables. That's something that's on my to-do list. But I know which ones grow here and which ones are good and bad, but sometimes the ID, not so much. Let's see here. Bringing you around. This plant right here, again, I'm not sure what it is. It's just another viney growing plant. But I believe this one's also edible for the chickens. And what's nice is you don't need to actually know. You don't need to be absolutely sure whether or not your chickens will eat it. Just throw it in there. Just throw it in there, guys. If they want to eat it, they'll eat it, right? They're not too picky. And if they don't like it, they're just going to scratch it into their bedding, and that becomes more bedding and prep and the start for your next compost pile. So super easy, super simple. See how they're looking at so far. Lots of greens already. I've only been at this for a few minutes, maybe 10, 15, because I'm talking to you. But if I were doing this just really quickly to harvest greens for them, it would probably take a total of 5 minutes. And just that right there is probably enough greens for them for the entire day. And that cost to me is a little bit of time. Mama. No, Mama. I'm trying to get a jailbreak here. She sees there's lots of deliciousness right on the other side of the fence that she wants. Sorry, Mama. Next time. They like to sit here and look at me and make me feel bad for keeping them in. This mom is mostly just interested. Katie likes to feed them. She'll sit right here at their little entrance area and sit on that little stoop there and feed them through the fence, and they love that because a lot of times they don't want to have to. If you just throw weeds on the ground in there, they'll be fine, right? They're going to eat them, but some of the plants are easier to eat straight from the ground, and they're used to that. So if you hold them and they can rip it off like natural, they'll eat a lot more of it. Here in the tropics, at least, we have this wonderful tree called moringa. It's a superfood, very well known. A lot of people use it for teas. A lot of people eat it straight. I like to eat it straight. I just bite off all this nice fresh new growth. I just bite that off. But also, this is a chicken food. Ooh, took that whole branch, but that's all right. It'll grow back. That's what's nice about it. You can just keep ripping it off and it'll keep growing back. That right there, that's super high in protein and it has a lot of nutrients in it that both the chickens love and we love. So this is another great supplement. It's basically like I'm giving them vitamins. This is really high in vitamins. So this is me. All right, chickens, in case you don't have enough of them, here's your vitamins. I'm actually gonna take a bite of that before I throw it in, especially that nice, I like the nice new growth down here. That's nice. It has like a slightly, not peppery, but it has a little bit of like that little spice at the end. But it's nice and green, a little bit nutty, nice little spice. So right now the chickens are down there because they're looking for other, we threw some food scraps in there recently. Uh-oh. Otto, you're not allowed in the garden. You're not allowed in the garden. It's a constant, not battle per se, but what are you doing there? You know you're not supposed to be in the garden. Come on. Come here. Come here. He's right now he's pushing the boundary because he's technically on the edge of the garden on those 4x4s that I piled up to create this raised bed. What? What's your deal? Let's move you out of the garden, bud. Oh, whoo, sorry. Dropped you. Don't worry, he's resilient, guys. He's very resilient. Okay, another thing here is if you are growing sweet potatoes, you likely have an abundance of greens. And humans, we can eat those. That's a great high in vitamin C, and you can use it as fresh greens. You can cook them up, put them in a stir fry or anything like that. But chickens also will eat them. And especially here, if I'm trying to keep my path clear, they start to take over. So this right here you could take this and see how there's already roots starting to come out down here. So if that root punctured into the ground and grew fully, that would become a new sweet potato. And you can see all these there's lots of different roots starting there. So this right here could become a new sweet potato vine. But for me, I'm going to use it for chicken feed. Put it with the rest of their greens up there. They'll get to that eventually, or they'll scratch it in. That's what's nice about having a run system like this, is you can throw all the scraps and weeds and everything that you don't want, and you can just throw them right in there. And they'll process it all for you. These guys are expecting me to let them out now. I'm not sure why, because I usually don't let them out in the morning, but they clearly want to get out. But I think I'm going to be out here for some of the day today. I'm going to do some work back here. So they will hopefully, later today, you guys will get to get out and explore. But just looking around again, continuing this search right here. I have both cohitre and that some sort of bitter gourd or whatever it was. This leaf. There's also cohitre right here, and it's just growing wild right here below the chickens. So most of the time, you guys can have a decent amount of chicken feed that's just growing around your property that you don't even know about. And you can either let them out and they'll find it and you don't have to do any work, or you can harvest it for them and bring it to them. Either way works, guys. It doesn't really matter which one you do. It's whatever works for you and your system. So you get to make that decision. All right, last but not least, and again, this is just on my property. What I'm talking about here is coconuts. When we harvest these coconuts, we have a huge bunch, and what we usually do is hack them open and collect all the juice, and then we'll scrape out any of the meat that's good still, the meat in there, and we'll use all that for various things, but both just fresh eating, or we dry it out and use it for dried, or we put it and make coconut milk ourselves. But all that excess, when we're chopping these up, often we don't need all of that. Because right here we have another bunch already. Try not to blind you with that light. So, bunch here. That's just, we're ready to basically harvest these, and whatever we don't eat though, the actual meat itself, because when we break them in half, you can see this one we harvested from. We scraped all the meat out. But if we didn't scrape the meat out, what we'll do is we'll just throw it right in with the chickens, and they'll start eating all that delicious flesh right there. It's starting to rot there. But they'll eat that, and they love that coconut meat. I'm sure they love the coconut water too. But again, the general rule of thumb is if it's edible for us, it's edible for them, and they'll likely eat it. So that's why, you know, the best thing, the easiest thing possible to give them if you need to supplement their feed is just all your food scraps. You can see Mom throws in her food scraps, we throw in our food scraps, and that gives them lots of food to eat. And if they don't eat it, as the little bugs and critters start to try to chow down on it, then that's food for them as they continue to look through it. All right, guys, that's it for me today. It's starting to get nice and sunny. I can tell it's going to be a hot day today, so I'm going to start doing a little bit of garden work, making sure that everything's all right and there's enough mulch to keep these guys through the next few days, since it's going to be pretty hot. So hope you guys have enjoyed this video on how to essentially supplement your chicken feed using what's growing in your yard. And again, it's going to vary based on where you are and what your local plant species are, but once you figure out what they'll eat, and the easiest way to do that is just let them roam and just watch them. They'll pick out what they like to eat really quickly, and they'll avoid completely. If there's an area that's completely cleared, you know they love that, right? Or you just bring them food and you just hold it up to them and they'll start eating it, and if they eat it a lot, you know that they're going to like that. So super, super easy. Definitely any food scraps you have, just throw it in. They'll eat most of it, and whatever they don't eat, as it starts to break down and attract other little things, they'll eat those. So super easy. And there's a lot of other ways to supplement your chicken feed. There's so much information out there on the internet you can look up, and one main person I'd recommend is Justin Rhodes. He's based in North Carolina, so if you're in more of a temperate climate, he'd be a great reference for you to get your chicken system started. He actually has a course on permaculture chickens. I think oftentimes you can get that for free if you sign up at the right time. He offers it as a little extra, but he also has an online membership area where you can sign up, and it is I think it's a monthly payment or something like that, but there is a full online community. He posts member videos directly there. He answers questions, and he has lots of experience raising chickens, and not just a small little backyard flock, but also large flocks throughout there. So check him out. I'll leave him tagged in the link up there. I think it's up there. And yeah, it's a great resource and great source of information there for you guys when you're starting to do chickens. He's actually one of the inspirations for this vlog, and how he set his up and basically just showed what was going on, and that's what I'm trying to do here. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.